Hi there, my name's Brukowski and welcome to this, my Planet Coaster 2 video, where I'm going to show you around this ride that I've called the Flight of the Valkyries. Now, I've themed this ride based on a Norse myth that I found. The Valkyries were actually female warriors that escorted warriors to Valhalla and they worked for Odin. Now, I've had to stretch this myth slightly because there are no female models of statues, so the Valkyries here are actually male, but I've given them wings that we'll have a look at shortly. Actually, let's go and have a look at them now. The wings on the Valkyries are made up from a feather piece that I found in the menu, and I used a picture of a bird's wing just as inspiration, just to try and lay them out in different sizes, and then I duplicated them. Basically, I just turned it over and it worked almost without any tweaking, just the way that the back looks. It was okay on the reverse side.
Let's strip the ride back and have a look how I built it.
What I've done is I've blueprinted the ride and the paths, and I've just popped it down in the taiga biome without anything else. So there's no terraforming being done here, other than just this little trench here that I've cut out to allow the coaster to go through it. But this is pretty much how I started. This will make it easier for me to talk you through how I started building this ride. Now, the first thing that I did was a little bit of terraforming. I lifted the area under the station, which I've not done for this video, but I did put a little bit of contouring onto the landscape. Then I placed the station just over here, because I knew I would take the lift hill over here, up this bank, and I'd fill this bank in eventually with a bit of landscaping. But I placed the station here, and then I started building the paths. So I built the queue and it cycled around here, and I really just placed it in an interesting way because I really did want to get some interaction between the ride and the people in the queue. And then I built the exit alongside it, coming back to this plaza just here. Once the paths were in place, I then started building the ride. Now, the first thing that I did was I brought the back end of the track out and I put a block section here, then some brakes and a second block section. This would allow me to run 3 trains. So I wanted to build this first, and then I could start building the main ride, and I knew where I would end up trying to join the rest of the ride too. So I brought the lift hill here up this bank, and I knew that I would be filling this in, so I could landscape this, so all of this section here would be filled in with terrain. It came down this bank here, hugging it quite tightly, did a roll just here, looped around over the top of this small lake, coming out of that little valley into another roll, and then I brought it down underneath the queue path because I really wanted that interaction between people stood on the plaza and seeing the coaster dive underneath the queue path and then back out and over the top of the queue path. Now, at the time, this path just here that went over the top was a lot flatter. I think I lifted that to get the ride underneath and just redirected it ever so slightly. So I did move that once I'd put this banked stall turn in, then back round to the station. What I did do, and this might offend some of the purists, is I built the ride without any supports, and then I just went around and added the supports to certain sections where I thought they might need them. Now, there are lots of sections like here where it's completely unsupported, and yes, the purists will probably say that this doesn't really fit with reality, particularly this loop just here. It's completely unsupported and just breaks the laws of physics, but I don't mind. I've just gone for aesthetics. Yeah, we're in a game, so we can do what we want. It doesn't matter that it totally doesn't work in reality. I've just done for what appeals to me visually. And so yes, some people might say, well, that's completely unrealistic. That loop there would not be able to be freestanding without any kind of supports. But I've just gone for what looks nice, because that is really the main visual element of this ride, and you can see it from the path. So I didn't want to stick loads of supports in there to break up that nice line that it gives. If we have a look around the ride itself, you can see that what I've tried to do is be a little bit economical with how much scenery I've used. Because I'm playing on console, I don't want to use massive amounts of pieces, so I've been sparing with the amount of rocks that I've used. But just here, for instance, I'm quite pleased with how this has turned out. I've just used the terrain tools to raise and lower the terrain, and then painted it in different textures, so it provides quite a bit of interest. But just here, the only scenery piece that I've used is this one single boat, so all the rest of this interest comes from just terrain. So what we're going to do to finish is we're going to walk the queue and have a look around at all of the scenery as we go. So before we even get into the ride, just here before the ride, we've got a bit of don't dive fencing and some planters in front. So you get this very imposing entrance just here, and up on the right, just up there, you can see another one of the statues that I've built onto a plinth. So in this view alone, we can see 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 of the Valkyrie statues. So let's start up the entrance, and I built some woodwork just up here as we go over this bridge, and I made the path the wooden structure. Now just at the moment we haven't got the update that allows us to take this logo off the path, but that's coming shortly in December, so that will be going as soon as I can. Then we get into the normal path. Just here I built some boulders to separate the queue path from the exit path, and what I've tried to do is walk the path and at every point have a look around and make sure there's something interesting. And if it wasn't interesting, then like just here, I've done a little bit of terrain work just to break it up and make it interesting again. Then we come to this statue, and what I've tried to do is make everyone slightly different. So I've stuck this one in some fire, and then if we can look back over the coaster as it dives under the bridge, well, that's really interesting as well. We can see into the station just here, which is tantalizing for the guests, but then the queue bends away and we get a view over this lake where the coaster dives under the bridge, goes into the turn and goes back under the bridge again. That's really what I was really trying very hard to do on this queue, is to get it really interacting with the coaster, so wherever you look you can see the coaster very close, and so it's going to be a really entertaining queue line. Let's look back over into this pond as it comes over and then back down underneath. Really spectacular. Then over the end of the bridge, originally what happened is this queue line went straight ahead here and joined up with where you can see those guests, the other side of those supports. But I realized that I couldn't actually make the most of the valley with the waterfall. So if we come down here, we lost this great view just here of the coaster coming around up the valley over the top of these waterfalls, and I really wanted to include that because it's just a really lovely view. So I extended the queue and brought it down here. If I show you from the top of what you would have seen, if we go up through these people to about here, I had left a gap down there that you could see in that kind of direction, but it wasn't quite as spectacular as I wanted. And also, when I built this top pool, this was my original intention, to have a look down the valley in that direction, but because I needed to just build up this bit of terrain to enclose the water, it kind of blocked the view down the valley and it wasn't quite as spectacular. So I think extending the path there was a really good idea. Then we come finally into the station, up this queue path, through a little bit of scenery onto the ride itself. So I think it's time to ride the ride. Here we go, we're sat on the ride. I'm going to let you sit back and enjoy. And there we go into the brake run, and that is the end of the ride. Well, I hope you've enjoyed that video. I don't claim to be a master coaster builder whatsoever. I'm still learning, but I'm really pleased with how this one has turned out. I like the ride itself, but I'm really more pleased with the way that it interacts with the queue and its overall look. The whole ride feels really involved, quite dense in its theming, and lots going on. So all the way around the queue there's always something to look at, and it's just visually attractive. So I'm really pleased, considering that I've only been playing Planet Coaster for a few months. I think this is one of my best creations. But let me know what you think. I'm quite happy for people to tell me where I've gone wrong or what I could do better. But if you have enjoyed this video, then don't forget to give me a like, a subscribe, and click the bell notifications as well. But all that's left now is to say, stay safe, and I'll see you soon.